Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's installment of ClueCon Weekly. This week with us, we have Sagar Malam from Ecosmob, a developer, a consultant, a project lead. Thank you for joining us, Sagar, today. And would you like to give us a quick introduction about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Sagar, and I'm working as a project leader at Ecosmob. I specialized in real timing communication, and apart from that, I also play the role of project leader. So I would participate in gathering the requirements, planning the project, and overseeing the execution of the overall project. Ecosmob is one of the leading VoIP service provider in India. So we generally create customized tailor-made softwares for our customers who are mostly the telecom service providers across the world. So yeah, that is our main specialty. Apart from that, we also work on some of the AI and mobile applications.
Oh, nice. So there's a lot to start from. So as we were saying in the pre-call area, we don't often have developers on here. So I'm curious about a few things you do. First of all, what's your main stack when it comes to development? There's a contention where there's a lot of people doing JavaScript now. Even I have switched to doing a lot of JavaScript from Ruby. And I don't know what's your main development stack?
Yeah, so that actually depends on the kind of the project. So generally, we have two types of project. One is something that will need customization inside FreeSWITCH itself. Otherwise, like we would use ESL and Python or the JavaScript along with FreeSWITCH in order to develop the application.
Okay, so yeah, JavaScript to Python. So you've often used Python with FreeSWITCH too?
Yeah, yeah, we do.
Yeah, that's something that haven't been. Do you prefer JavaScript or Python to interface with FreeSWITCH if you have to choose?
I prefer Python because it is more service friendly. I would say, like if you have to run a program as a service, it becomes very easy to run. You can easily create multiple processes, multiple threads. In Python, there are libraries available, but same thing in JavaScript, it is a little difficult. So I always prefer Python because it allows us to scale very easily.
Oh, that's a very good point. So Python is easier to scale. I have to say, I've done a lot of Python when it comes to building machine learning stuff, but those were really just, something you'd run from the command line, from something else, like just feed the data and just run it. So I have no experience with scaling Python, but it sounds like it's a good way to. So do you use containers like Docker or Kubernetes? What else in that space? Like, what's your DevOps stack now?
Yeah, so we have started working on Kubernetes, but not there yet. But when it comes to DevOps, we use Git, which is integrated with the Jenkins, which would generate the builds. And depending on the composition, like a Docker image may have multiple services, or it may have just single service. And Jenkins would read the Jenkins file and create the Docker images, and all of that is automated. So it pulls from the Git. It processes that, generates the Docker images, and ultimately those images can be deployed to the servers through Ansible. So we are not using Kubernetes yet because we don't need it as of now, but we are exploring that. But otherwise, we have used Jenkins, and we use Docker a lot.
That's a super nice stack. Yeah, the thing that people have been starting with Kubernetes only recently is something I've heard for a lot of people. Like it's still not quite ready for general consumption. Getting Docker to work and run is way easier for people. That's
Right.
it seems to be a given. Cool. So, well, you mentioned FreeSWITCH, but I'm sure you use other open source technologies. So, ClueCon Weekly, we try to focus on the open source aspect of what we all do. We all probably mostly use open source tools at this point because it's hard to find someone who doesn't use open source. But what are your main open source packages you're using? Like aside from FreeSWITCH, do you, for example, use Asterisk in addition to FreeSWITCH? Which SPC do you prefer? Camellia, OpenShips, the kind of stuff, or
Yeah.
something else?
So yeah, sure. So apart from FreeSWITCH, for the proxy, I would use Camilio. And for the database, I would use MongoDB and MySQL, a kind of hybrid data model. Uh, it depends on the type of the application. Like if we have the web services which would administer the free switch, then we would use Nginx along with PHP FPM. So for the web, I always prefer PHP, and I used Nginx and PHP FPM in order to run those scripts over the HTTP protocol.
So you run PHP in the for the web side of things. That's well, yeah, that's still around. I mean, there's a lot of people we used to not use PHP, and now they do. So there's
Yeah,
certainly a lot going on there. The how do you feel about the current state of PHP?
I'm sorry. Can you please repeat?
How do you feel about the current state of PHP? Like, what's your how do you feel like? I mean, PHP used to be good around version 5. Then it was not good until version 7 or 8, and now it's good again. So what do you think about that? Is it the case? Like, are you finding PHP easy to use right now? Are you liking the experience? I guess the question is.
Yeah, so I would say that yes, PHP is good enough. Like when it comes to the building web services, web portals, and all those, it is still very easy to learn PHP and to work on top of it. There are a lot of frameworks available which you can leverage in order to build the administration, the front end very easily and very quickly. So but if you try to do like something for which PHP is not made, like if you try to build a daemon service which
Mm.
would let's say would try to capture something, then PHP is not good with that. For that you have to go with Python. And with this newer version, I think that they are just trying to make it more secure, and they are just trying to make it more open, so you can use PHP for other different type of things as well apart from web.
Yeah, PHP 8 is actually quite good. I've had some experience with it
Yeah.
working on our SDK, and was really interesting. So on the PHP side, which framework
Mhm.
do you prefer?
So we have mostly worked with YI series. So YI 1, 2, 3
Mhm.
is I think coming now. So and also we have worked with the Laravel and the Lumen framework when it comes to PHP. So
I'm a big fan of Laravel. I have to say I don't know much about the others, but really it is a very good it's a very good way to work in PHP, especially since PHP sometimes is a bit slow and there's some things that you need to know. Cool.
yeah.
So well, we gone around to talk. We spoke about your web stack. What about your FreeSWITCH side stack? You mentioned you use ESL, so you prefer ESL to mod XML curl, the kind of stuff.
Yeah, I prefer mod XML curl for fetching the dial plan, and not for the dial plan, mostly for fetching the configurations, and for
Mhm.
controlling the call I prefer ESL. So I would use Python, or I would use Node.js in order to create a service which would communicate with FreeSWITCH over ESL.
Is there a library for Python that you use for ESL? I'm asking it honestly because I don't know. Like, is there a library, or is it something you've just built on your end and you're just using?
Yeah, so we have our own library, but there are some open source library as well. Like Green Switch is one of them,
Hmm.
which uses Python to connect with the free switch, and it uses ESL in order to control the free switch. So yeah, Green Switch is there, and I think there was an advanced version with better threading support was there. I think it's Trio Switch. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, it's there. And same thing for Node.js as well. Like for Node.js also, there are 2 to 3 open source libraries which you can use in order
Oh,
to
nice. Yeah,
communicate.
it's ESL is not difficult, but it can be if you're not, if
Yeah.
if you don't pay attention, it can be difficult, right? So it is. It's always always feels like it's always good to have it. Great. So you mentioned so aside from FreeSWITCH, what's your stack in the telephony space? You mentioned a few SPC products, other stuff. So where do you start in general when you're working on a telecom project?
Yeah, so we have worked on almost all type of telecom projects. So like I would say that we have worked on class 4, class 5 switches. Right now we are working on some of the UCAS platform as well. So we are building a platform which will provide communication as a service over the cloud. And
Mhm.
also have some projects which are based on the IVRs and specialized IVRs, which would have a specific flow that would make the productivity of the agents more efficient. So those type of projects we have, and apart from FreeSWITCH, we use Camilio a lot in order to control the signaling and all those stuff.
So Camelio, not well, I guess that makes sense. Not OpenSIPs, or you use both?
I use both. Like it depends. There is very little difference, but it depends on what type of feature we need. Depending on that, I would decide that which one we would go with. But mostly it is Camilio.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we use Camellia internally too, so it was just actually yesterday we had one of the I wouldn't say founders, one of the main contributors to the OpenSIPs project, and it was quite complicated to even just figure out where it was OpenSIR, then it became OpenSIPs, and then
Yeah,
there was Camellia is effectively another split. There's a lot going on there, so it's
yeah.
hard to follow. It's definitely hard to follow. Cool. So, well, you're a developer, so you develop applications. Can you tell us about a few interesting things you've worked on recently?
So
Bonus points if they involve FreeSWITCH, of course.
yeah. So actually, we have recently worked on Leap Stir Shaken, that Stir Shaken library provided by the Signal Wire.
Nice.
So we have actually used that to build a module which would utilize the APIs in order to authenticate and verify the certificates. So it is capable to like load the certificates and encode them into a passport, which can be added as a part of the SIP request. So that is something interesting recently that we have worked on. And yes, also along with that, we are working on providing implementing TTY MSRP and RTT using FreeSWITCH. So along with audio, like it will be used for all those services as well. So we'll see, like something we may have to add in FreeSWITCH, something which is already there and we can leverage. So that is another thing that we are working on.
So, for people who are not as much into the process and the industry as we are, what can you explain what MSRP is?
MSRP is the message relay protocol. So you can implement an application like a chat application. So the packets would be routed just like the SIP messages over
Mm-hmm.
over the internet. So something similar to, you can say, XMPP. Not exactly that, but something similar to that. So which you can use to build the chat applications.
Yeah, it's also related to it, so it's instant messaging. So effectively, it will be like instant messaging, but sent over SIP. It's sort of a distant relative of what's the other SMPP? No, SMPP is the older messaging one, right?
Yeah,
So
SMPP is the older, and this is not something which will work in tandem with FreeSWITCH. It, it it has its own way to route the packets and the payload. So
hmm.
it can work as a separate medium to send the messages. Like in SIP, you can use the message request to send the chat. Similarly, MSRP has its own way to do that.
Well, that's very nice. Cool. So, well, of course, those are interesting projects. But maybe you mentioned some IVR projects earlier. What's the kind of IVR you usually build, and how do they look like?
Yeah, so like most of the IVRs are just normal, but we create a very large scaling systems which can have these IVRs. So generally, we would have 30 to 40,000 customers calling into the switch and playing the IVR. So uh, we are more focused on improving the performance and making it scalable. But otherwise, there is like all those normal things. We can capture DTMF, we can fire the REST APIs, and based on the results, we can act upon it. We may in future work on exploring and integrating it with something like dialog flow,
Mhm.
so that we can also have AI along with the IVR. So that is something we may do later. But right now, most of the IVR applications, they are just normal, but they are designed to scale big. Like it won't be
Mm.
doing too many things, but it is capable to handling too much of load, so that a big telecom providers can use them for their customers.
Yeah, you're probably right. The IVRs don't do much. They probably shouldn't do too much, even like it's from a certain standpoint. We always try to put too much into an IVR, right? Where as a developer, you want to do the new thing, to do speech
Yeah,
recognition, you want to do chatbots. Then you realize that maybe all people need to be able to do is ask for, I don't know, the time for their appointment, and that's all you need to
yeah,
do. I just want to know when my doctor appointment is. Thank you, and that makes it interesting. But yeah, on the other hand, getting the IVR designs are always hard. Well, keeping on that topic, you said you give us what are a few of your customers? Well, maybe not the names, but could you give us a few examples of people you build applications for, and in general, what your typical customer is? I guess Ecosmob is a large company, so you have all kinds of customers. But really,
yeah.
if there's anything in particular you can point us at, just to make sure that we have a picture of what you're doing in your company.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I can say about the VoIP mostly. So in VoIP, we have internet service providers who would like to provide the voice service as well, along with that. So for them, we would generally build class 4, class 5 switches. We also have a project working for the MVNO. So we are building the system which can do the MVNO as well. And we have lot of customers mostly in the US, Europe, and also in the Gulf. So mostly it is the a telecom service provider. So mostly like providing international calling services, or providing IVR services, SaaS companies who would like to delegate some of their development to us.
Yeah, so there's you certainly have a lot going on in that regard.
Yeah.
I was wondering, we mentioned class 5 and class 4 switches at the moment. To be precise with our audience, maybe we could go through what those are. So what's the difference between a class 4 and a class 5?
Yeah, so class 4 is something like which would only do the routing of the call, and which could manage billing for you. So let's say that if you want to provide a service, let's say of international calling, then that switch is something to which your client can connect, and they can send the calls, and it will take care of all the billing, LCR, LRNR, the basic features of the class 4 switch. And when it comes to class 5 switch, so apart from the routing and billing, it would also have applications in there, it will be voicemails, it will be conferences, it can have the IVRs. So that way you can provide a full-fledged UCAS service with that. It may not have video, but when it comes to audio, class 5 switch will have everything, all the features that you can think of.
Hmm. So you could say that most of what we do is a class 5 switch. Like when you're a developer, a developer in the voice over IP space, you're generally always doing class 5 stuff. Is
Right.
that a fair? Is it a fair assumption to make?
Yeah, we can say that. Right. That's fair.
Hmm. Well, Again, I think we went through a lot. Is there anything else in particular you'd like to look at? Anything else we can explore together? Otherwise, well, I thank you for joining us today, and it was a pleasure having you.
Yeah, I think yes, it was wonderful to meet you and to discuss all this stuff. Yeah, I don't have anything else apart from that. It's my pleasure to be here.
Cool. So, well, again, thank you very much. And
Thank
Sagar
you.
Malam from Ecosmob joined us today. We went through what their developer stack is, what their work looks like, etc. We don't have developers on very much, so that was a really interesting interesting chat. And I thank you very much. So,
Thank you.
thank you, Sagar,
Bye.
and everybody else. I see you next week. Bye bye.